LeBron, he's a byproduct of doing both. He's a byproduct of having some good genes. Something made him 6'8" or 6'9". But then the rest of it is him spending a lot of time on the basketball court.
There's an idea that certain ethnicities are just more athletic than the other.
Are black people naturally more athletic than other races?
You're not born with just the ability to play sports. For example, Noah Lyles, he's a 200-meter champion, but if he wasn't doing that since he was young, would he be a champion?
Are calves like literally just genetic, or is it the way that people walk for decades?
If you really want to get into a sport long term, then you need to have good biomechanics. And if you're not lucky enough to be born with them, then you have to build that up.
I've been in pain. I got into a sport. It helped me get out of pain.
It's one of those things where you don't know where your genetics are unless you start doing something and do it for a good period of time.
The memes on this pole vault are way too good. We got to kick things off with. Actually, the whole podcast should just be this for today.
How about that one guy and his big old dick?
What is this? Are you guys ready to play this?
Sure.
Boing.
Okay. His name is Anthony Amorati. So cute. I can't even say it without being breathy. I feel like Marilyn. Men think of me as Marilyn in bed. Dead. Let me tell you what his name means in Chinese. Anthony in Chinese means 安色你. An means I. 色 means horny. 你 means you. So Anthony means I'm horny and you. Oh yes, honey. He is so cute. He's in the air with his hands up, surrendering just like a nice French boy would do. But his dick is not retreating. See? Talking about pole vaulting. He should pole vault with his dick. His dick should be the pole. Just vault away perfectly. Anyway, I feel bad for his dick. I think it's swollen, bruised. And as a nice Chinese lady, I would like to make him some really nice Chinese delicacy that can really heal him.
That's really sweet.
I'm saying bitter melon.
Bitter melon.
Oh, it smells so good. I love the fragrance. It's bitter, just like life. The benefits of bitter melon can help reduce blood sugar, have cancer-fighting properties, decrease the cholesterol levels, improve fiber intake, can reduce swollenness on your genitals.
I wonder if this guy's going to hit her up.
If you are a horny bitch, you are lonely and single, and you want to have a wild night, you can always manifest. You're going to have wild sex all day long, all night long.
She really thought about this a lot.
I didn't watch this.
That made a turn.
Your future swollen pussy.
Oh my God. I sent you another clip because the memes are too good from this. He couldn't make it over because his dick got caught. I mean,
that's the worst way.
Great.
Oh, God.
3, 4.
Someone made like a painting.
1, 2, 3,
That's so
4.
That's literally like a boing, you know, the cartoon noise that the spring makes.
Let's go full screen. Hold on.
Oh, yeah, I did see that full screen. Thank you, Andrew. Oh, my God. Oh.
That's a great painting.
I know. I love the internet. People get all negative about Instagram and all this stuff, but I think it's pretty positive.
Man.
So
Dude, that's
Great
troublesome.
way to uplift your day, you know?
That's really troublesome to be walking around and having to hold that. Cause like,
His back has got to be, you know, pretty tight, right? Lugging that thing around all the time.
And before everyone's like, oh, you all go small. Like, I mean, let's think about this. The dick size, whatever. It's cool to have a good sized penis, but that shit that shit really got in the way of life.
Yeah.
Think about all this. Well, he might get some different sponsorships now. Who knows? But like
Joy mode.
Joy mode. Well, he'll probably get a Joy mode sponsorship.
Well, I heard rumors that he had some Joy mode in his blood. He might have tested positive for a lot of citrulline.
Oh my God. But that's stressful. That is stressful to be having that type of shit to deal with.
He's got to buy certain types of jeans and shorts and
can't wear normal boxers.
Yeah. He's like, no, I can't wear those.
Nah, like you got to wear shit that'll strap that down. That's just awkward.
I mean, look, you know, you watch the Olympics and a lot of things are pretty revealing. You know, you see like tight clothes on all the sprinters and everything. And every once in a while you might see something flip or flop around a little bit maybe, but Not like that guy.
That flipped and flopped.
That guy was really representing out there.
Hey, there we go. You're Italian, right, Mark?
I'm Italian, but shit, man, I don't know about that.
But I mean, right, his Olympic dreams kind of just they went where they went.
Yes, so OnlyFans, bro. That guy will make hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars.
But if you're gonna lose, what that's one heck of a way to, you know.
Your dick is viral. He has viral
Yeah, remember
dick.
The only time where you want your dick to be viral.
well, there was a guy sprinting in the combine a few years ago, and he like blew out of his fucking pants. Remember? And his dick and balls went everywhere.
It really just
Yeah. He like fell, and then he like was like, "Oh shit! I think I ripped my shorts."
Oh my god!
And then all his junk fell out.
But then when he's like going back to like put everything away, he had to scoop like multiple times.
Yeah. A couple. Yeah.
It's like he just dropped a bunch of money. Like,
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, and the Kelsey brothers.
Find the video.
The Kelsey brothers were like, "Oh my god!" Like this, like how embarrassing. But they were obviously joking around.
This wasn't actually even an ad for Joy Mode, but guys, get yourself.
Works.
This shit is fucking good. I like. You can use it before working out too, because I think it has.
Yeah, why are you taking
Don't
it right
use
now?
it before a pole vault.
Don't use it before pole vault. Vitamin C, citrulline, arginine, Panax ginseng, and yeah. So
They should put a warning on there: do not use before Olympic Games.
Oh my god!
They're gonna have to.
Or you know, if you're gonna, you know, if you're doing some martial art or something, and you want to scare your opponent, use it. Watch something and then just walk out there rock hard. No one wants to grapple somebody who's rock hard.
Maybe.
That shit's awkward. Or maybe. And if they want to grapple with you, dog, get the fuck away. That's not the match you want. It's not the match you want.
Want to wrestle? You're like, wait, what?
It's one way to put out the vibe.
Yeah, you're like, huh? You're like, I didn't think it was shit was going down like this.
Oh god!
Use that thing like.
And
a
then
lure.
there was Anthony Davis, I think. Is that his name from the 49ers? Got tackled by his dick. I'll never forget that.
Really?
It's etched in my brain forever.
Oh, we got to find this. I've never seen this
I'm
before.
like, if someone can get tackled by, you know, if you can get, if it's like a handle that's just sticking out all the time. I mean, shit.
Wait, yeah, I have to see
He
this.
got pulled down by his dick.
Let me find it.
And he's, I mean, wearing a normal football uniform. Is it Anthony Davis? That's his
Vernon
name?
Davis.
Vernon Davis. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Vernon Davis was a monster. Great athlete.
Yeah.
Anthony Davis is the basketball player on the Lakers.
Oh, is he the unibrow?
The brow.
Yeah, that guy's amazing.
The brow. Whoa.
Everything's about the schlong today.
When isn't it? All right, fuck off.
It's all slow motion.
Like,
Wait, why is that guy's hand just? Oh, he's trying to bring him. Wait. Ow, dog. Is he grabbing onto his junk?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And he's trying to pull his pants down even from the back. He's getting them from the front and the back. It's like, god damn.
he made the adjustment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, his hand just kind of like got right in there, I guess.
Oh my god, dude.
Look at that.
That's not cool, man.
Maybe he's trying to help lengthen it or something.
Jelking him a bit.
Yeah, stretching him out.
He felt it too. That's, oh gosh.
That's the worst, man.
He should have a ring too, by the way.
All right, what else we got for today? We got something else going on?
Are your genetics holding you back, yo?
They held him back right there.
His genetics actually did hold him back a bit. That's two guys who were fucked by their big old dicks.
Yeah, blessed and cursed at the same time.
That's how you know it shouldn't be too big, guys. It shouldn't be too big. Leads to danger.
Takes up too much blood.
Oh,
Can't digest anything. Can't think straight. That's for sure.
There we go.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm sweating. Okay.
But seriously though, I think the idea of like the Olympics are out. I think we see so many different people from so many different countries that are such great athletes. And you know, first off, there's an idea that certain ethnicities are just more athletic than the other. I was on Instagram once the other day, and this guy from Functional Patterns, he watched a video of ours, and when we mentioned, or I mentioned, that people should maybe try to get into a sport, he was talking about how dumb that was, because he was like, not everyone can just play a sport. Not everyone was born with it. like you. And he was mentioning that I was just born with athleticism.
Said you hit the genetic lottery.
I hit the genetic lottery. I was just born with it. But one of the things is just like, you're not born with just the ability to play sports. There's a lot of people that have been doing this for a really long time, and there's a lot of people that have never done it until like their 20s. But you, like, for example, Noah Lyles, he's a 200-meter champion, but you know, if he wasn't doing that since he was young, would he be a champion? It's one of those things where you don't know where your genetics are unless you start doing something and do it for a good period of time.
Yeah, you're born with a particular structure. You're born with, you know, there's some things are sort of set. You know, we talk a lot about calves, right? And it's like, I don't know what the difference is with calves, but are calves like literally just genetic, or is it the way that people walk for decades on end?
How much weight they carry.
How much weight they carry. Maybe somebody, you know, tends to walk a little bit more on their toes, or maybe some of these differences that we might think are from ethnicities, because sometimes you see some Asian people with some pretty good sized calves. I've talked to some Asian friends about this before. They're like, yeah, I don't know why we got calves. But maybe it has to do with, first of all, it could have to do with particular things that a culture may place more emphasis on. But also it could simply just be the fact that maybe certain ethnicities, maybe certain genetics lead to people walking slightly differently. I mean, you ever just like go down the street and just see all the different ways that people walk? Some people are walking on their toes. Some people are walking with their feet pointed out. Some people are super pigeon-toed. And I'm just imagining if you do these things for a long time, it probably leads to certain types of results. And I think it's really easy to claim that you don't have good genetics and then, oh, look what I did with my genetics. I think people kind of like doing that. I know for like, you know, for my family, if I think of my brothers, we all had strength. Like, I don't really know why, but we also didn't have embedded into us some sort of like strength that was out of this world. It took a while, and it had to get like cultivated. It had to be trained.
Had to be nurtured.
Yeah, like were we built for it? Yeah, I guess you can kind of say once we got into it, we found out that we were maybe a little bit more built for it than another person. But if you look at my brother, he's in tons of pain all the time too. So he has some genetics that, okay, he's got this feature that's amazing, but he has this other feature that really holds him back. And so I think that if we're being honest, if we think about most genetics that most of us have, there's probably going to be some negative. There's probably going to be some stuff in there that, I don't know, maybe he's not amazing, maybe he's not great, but there's probably going to be some cool gifts blended in there somewhere that you can probably do something with. And for someone to say that they can't just play a sport, I think is ridiculous, because I think that there's enough sports for everybody. And I guess it would depend on what you define as a sport. And I would agree, like, okay, baseball, basketball, football, maybe those aren't for everybody. But there's certainly
Swimming.
a lot of sports to choose from.
Yeah, your people love to swim. Yeah, swimming's a sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask, I don't know, I don't know what happened with that post, but like, I would just like some better clarification or context, because I don't know, I used to blame my genetics too, but outside of that.
Go to my page real quick.
Okay, but I was going to say is outside of that, I mean, I started playing sports when I was like 3. Like, right, I played soccer when I was 3. I turned a little bit older and I started playing t-ball. Like, there's sports that were always available. I stopped playing competitive sports a little bit after, I think, like 8th grade, right? Like, that's when I just completely stopped and just stopped moving. Didn't do any sports until 38
years old.
Okay. And now I'm back into a sport. So the sports are available. So I'm curious what he truly meant by that, because it seems a little bit off in my opinion, like from what I can see from the surface.
Yeah, and also like if we're just looking at like structure, like just looking at like height, you have good height. And I think a lot of times Mexican people aren't necessarily as tall as you, right?
Yeah, and I jokingly said that on a podcast, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago, where like, oh, like I used to say I had bad genetics, but then I'm like, well, I mean, I'm damn near 6 feet tall. Like, it's pretty good for a Mexican. Like, I'm like pretty damn lucky in that, or concept, whatever you want.
And then the 190 pounds or so, you had to work at that.
Big time, yeah.
You had to work at that. Like, what would your frame be without lifting? I don't know.
I mean, it was like a soft 160 pounds at almost 6 feet
incredible.
tall. Yeah.
And someone might think like, oh, maybe that's not that big a deal. 30 pounds over the course of like a long time. That's a huge difference.
Even how the way you're
life-changing difference.
Like, the way you're moving these days too is totally different. I sent you the video, but the reason why, like, we're going to get into a lot of stuff here, like maybe the genetic differences that different ethnicities have, right? Potentially advantages and disadvantages. But I think the big thing to think about here is I think that most people haven't been able to tap into what they have genetically. Because when a lot of people look at these outliers or people that they deem won the genetic lottery, they don't see the amount of time these people have spent doing whatever practice they've been doing for how many so years. And that person typically hasn't been doing anything for that long period of time. Because no matter what it is, if you are able to spend 10 years with it and it's a physical practice, it's going to have some type of different positive effect on your body. But most people just haven't done something physical for that long of a period to actually get good and see what type of genetics they have. Because anyone I know that's lifted actually for 10 years and done some weightlifting or done some physical, you can see it. Like they're not everyone's the biggest, but you can see, oh shit, that person, they've put in some work. But when you haven't put in work, right, you don't know what your genetics are going to give you. You just don't know.
100%. And I think the people that chalk it up to genetics when they look at a Jay Cutler or they look at a Ronnie Coleman or they look at these different athletes, I think all they're doing is knocking themselves down. Like that guy's just, okay, Ronnie Coleman, he had some genetic properties that were probably really helpful, right? But how is it helpful to you to just claim that he's all genetics and that, I'm trying to walk myself through the process of like, I'm trying to train myself to be a good bodybuilder. And I'm just throwing that out there that Mike O'Hearn and all these other guys, they just have better genetics than me. Well, I guess if that's the case and I'm trying to spin it as a positive, maybe that helps me to work more or to work harder. And maybe that's not that bad of a mantra to kind of hang on to, but otherwise it's kind of bullshit. And I think that people are trying to use it as some sort of like little coddling, little swaddling blanket so that they can feel good about the position that they're in. I do realize there are discrepancies between people. I mean, you look at Shaq, right? Look at just the sheer size of a person like that. It's unbelievable. You look at the gifts that LeBron James has. I mean, it's just, again, one of the more incredible athletes, one of the more incredible specimens on the planet. But in his prime, could John Stockton score on LeBron James? He sure could. Oh. But that's training though, right? And it's training and it's genetics though too. You can't take it away just because the dude's white. You can't take it away and say this guy's working hard and this other guy just has these genetics that are superior. Like I think we do that too much. And to think, I understand the way that Larry Bird looks. he looks. Is he
the mailman?
He looks.
Was that his nickname?
Oh, that's Karl Malone.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Larry Bird. He looks like a bird. I mean, he's definitely
he does.
He definitely is like different looking.
Dude, he does look like a bird. But
for somebody to try to say that, like,
great white hope.
That's for someone to try to say like he doesn't have great genetics or that he isn't extremely, like his athleticism, Larry Bird's athleticism is off the fucking charts.
Dude.
He was amazing. Like he was so, I don't even know the right words because
he was a smooth mover.
Smooth. Yeah. He was so smooth.
This guy?
Unbelievably smooth. Yes.
Looks like he works for UPS.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think this is the amazing thing because you brought up Jay Cutler and Ronnie Coleman, but I think there's so many domains to athleticism, right? There's so many, like, if you look at tennis, Novak Djokovic, Carlos Alcaraz, like all these great tennis players, they're not huge. They do have some muscle, but they're quick. They have great agility. They have great flexibility. They have great hand-eye coordination. You look at people that play table tennis, that's just really popular in Asian countries. Look at the speed of that ball, right? And look at their ability to, like, so this isn't just about muscle. This isn't just about the way you look. Athleticism has a range of ability, right? And that's the thing. Like when you look at people that are that quick, like a Novak Djokovic or Pete Francis, anyway, Carlos Alcaraz or any of these tennis players, do you chalk it up to them just being genetically gifted or the amount of practice they've put in for years? Because they do have great bodies.
The combination.
But look at what they've done. Look at the practice. A word that maybe a lot of people don't think a lot about, but the practice that's put into this for years. Anybody can practice and anybody can get better. That's and I really want you to play that video, that the one from Instagram that I sent you, because I want his words to be understood.
Let me add something real quick while you're about to pull that up. I actually think one of the reasons why LeBron James isn't respected the way that he is, I mean, he's one of the greatest athletes of all time. He's absolutely incredible. He seems to be a professional in every way. I know some people don't love that he maybe says political stuff here and there, but I think that that's his right. But I think he's absolutely amazing, and I don't think he gets the credit he deserves because we, quite frankly, have not really seen him struggle. And for some reason, people want to see like a struggle. They want to see like suffering. They want to see something, maybe not something bad happen necessarily, but that was Jordan's story. You know, Jordan was awesome. He came in the league, rookie of the year. I think quickly he won defensive player of the year. People are like, he plays defense and he's fucking amazing on offense. He's a scoring leader. He sets the NBA on fire. And then all of a sudden this narrative starts to pop up like, he's got all these gifts, really cool, but he can't win. And then he got the shit beat out of him by the Pistons, and the Pistons made Michael Jordan. The Pistons, you can kind of think of them as like building Nike, because without that story, without Jordan get the shit beat out of him, and they had their coach, Chuck Daly, he had the Jordan rules. He literally had a book that he wrote on how to play against Michael Jordan, and most of the rules were just to beat the shit out of him. Like when he comes through, the lane, every shot is like not only contested, but it's contested with a fucking elbow. Give him an elbow to the ribs or hit him whatever way you could, hang on his arms, like basically just abuse him so that way when we get game 3 or game 4, he's not the same athletic guy that he normally is. And then the story is Jordan lifted and got stronger, and then he overcame that. But like LeBron, just out there shooting, passing for the last 20 years, passing it up to the other guy here and there, right? Doing his, layups and dunks, and he's still amazing, still explosive. He's playing in the fucking Olympics. But I think he just doesn't get the respect he deserves because he makes it look so easy. But he's a byproduct, and you hear about how much money he spends on getting like active release and all these different things. He's a byproduct of doing both. He's a byproduct of having some good genes. Something made him 6'8" or 6'9". And something gave him a good frame with his shoulders and his wingspan and size of his hands and feet and shit like that. But then the rest of it is him spending a lot of time on the basketball court, him spending a lot of time in the weight room, him getting around the best coaches, him learning all the plays, him learning, diligently, hour after hour, how to be the best.
The thing about LeBron too, real quick, is like, you've seen him since he was in high school. That's the thing too. I don't think people are paying as much attention to Jordan, but everyone was watching LeBron saying he's going to be the next big thing. He's going to be the king, right? Comes to the NBA, starts crushing immediately. You're right. Like there wasn't he didn't win an immediate championship, but he was already coming in scoring crazy points per game and being a fucking dominant force on the Cavs.
As a kid.
Okay, let me see. I don't know if the audio got fucked on this post. Let me see though.
Become athletic, and I know as an adult it's a little bit more difficult, but if you want to build athletic capacities, get into a sport. I mean, as a kid, it's kind of obvious. Play a sport, because kids get better as they go to practice and play their sport. You practice. If you want to become athletic as an adult, try to get into a sport and play a little bit. It doesn't need to be every single day, but can you find an adult league where you can do something once or twice a week, right?
Yeah, like all you have to do is put like, $100,000 into the stock market and you'll be a millionaire in no time. Like it's fucking easy. Like, what are you guys thinking? Just put 100 G's in the FRII index SP 500 and you'll be a millionaire. Guys, this is the problem when you listen to trainers or fitness influencers who have no experience in training the general public. If it was that easy, if it was only that easy, I'm pretty sure most people have tried that. It's like, let me get into the gym, let me get into a sport. But what ends up happening? They end up dealing with pains, and so they have to stop. This is the thing people aren't thinking about. If you really want to get into a sport long term, then you need to have good biomechanics. And if you're not lucky enough to be born with them, then you have to build that up. And you don't just do that by going out and playing a sport or just doing random stuff in the gym, lifting.
If you want to,
I mean, there's some interesting points there. Like, I understand, like, I guess some of those guys, functional patterns and some other people that help people online, they're maybe dealing with people that are already in pain. And you're not, but you weren't saying, hey, like, if you're in lots of pain, you can barely move, it'd be great if you played a sport.
Yeah.
You're more along the line saying, like, we're kind of thinking of our audience, which a lot of times our audience is people that love to lift. And we think it's a big mistake. And we're trying to warn people of, it would be great if you didn't just lift.
Yeah.
Because lifting has a lot of great things that it will do for you, a lot of great benefits. It will really be helpful. But we would hate to see people lose their athletic capacity. We would hate to see people stiffen up over the years.
And the thing is like, again, getting into something like swimming. I did mention that there are sports like basketball and soccer, etc. But swimming, a racket sport like table tennis, fucking handball. There's a lot of low intensity sports that aren't anything super hard or super crazy that can help people build athleticism. And the thing is when you start as a kid, you're not good immediately. You're not coordinated immediately. You're not athletic immediately. It comes from practicing over time. And one thing is as people get older and as you get a life, there's other things that are more important in your mind than like using your body in a physical sport. You just distance yourself farther and farther and farther from that capacity that you believe is only reserved for athletes or the athletic people, or the young people or the blessed or the gifted. But it's not. A lot of people that you might think are blessed and gifted have been doing things for a really long fucking time. And now when you see them doing it, or when you see the structure that I've been able to build, because this guy, when he made another video, he segmented some things that I said talked about my dad and my dad having a structure, et cetera. And he was like, look, he was born with a structure. He didn't have to, like, no, my dad is a 6'3", 225 pound man who has high body fat, arthritis, and he's in his 60s. He didn't do the things that I did. He didn't lift. He wasn't physical. So when I see my dad, I may see a big guy, but there's not a big guy that's fucking in crazy good shape, etc. He's not. Why? Because he didn't do the things that I've done for years. And maybe if he did, it'd be a different story. But I was born with my dad's genetics and my mom's genetics. The thing is, though, is I put those genetics to work. And what you see is the fucking work.
Right.
But if I just sat around and just thought I had great genes, I'd be in pain just like my father.
And that's and the most important thing to pass along to your children isn't your genetics are just going to be whatever they are. And you don't really have control over what your kids inherit in that way. But what you really want to pass along to your children are memes, and not the meme of the guy pole vaulting with the dick knocking the pole vault over. But you want to pass along ideas and information that are going to be useful to them, that they can then propagate and maybe probably even turn into something better for their own children. And I just think that that's like the most powerful thing as a parent to kind of hold on to. And when I think of like, when I go back to New Jersey, and go to the family reunion and talk to my family about, they all still talk about my grandfather, just like they all have these stories, and I'm sure some of them are halfway made up and they're exaggerated and whatever, but they're these memes that he passed along to the family, and then they're passing it down to their kids. And when we get together, there's just like many, many generations of the family there. And you just see how powerful that is. And sort of tying it back into the whole picture here is like, yes, the Bell family has some big calves. Yes, the Bell family can be pretty big and heavy. Many of us have been over 300 pounds. But the through line on everything is everyone works their ass off. A lot of hard workers. My Uncle Peter was a sanitation worker for 30 years, 40 years. Many of my uncles are either basketball coach, football coach. Almost everybody is a teacher. I mean, these are just like real normal blue collar people, and you couldn't help but want to work and want to do stuff, being from that family. And we've never, we're not going to use an excuse if someone has just great genetics and then just put our hands up and be like, I'm never going to be able to make it anywhere, because still going to play the sports and still going to try to find your way. And I think, when you play certain sports, you start to learn, where are you in the grand scheme of things in this sport at the age that you're at? If you're playing soccer and you're 13 and you're pretty overweight and you're a little slower and stuff, the odds of you figuring that out and like then becoming like a really high level soccer player are probably pretty low. And that just means that unless you're dead set on that, unless your heart really desires that, you probably move on to the next thing and you start to find your niche and you're like, oh, I could be a lineman in football. This is fun. I get to run into people and use my athleticism and use my gifts. And I think that's what we're trying to uncover. It's like, what are your gifts? What do you have? And hopefully your parents and hopefully adults when you were young didn't make you feel like a piece of shit, didn't make you feel like you didn't have any of these things, because they're all inside of everybody. Everyone's got them. That's why we have it's such a beautiful thing how many different sports you can play.
Yeah.
If you're short, you're 5'4", or you're 5'2", or you're Simone Biles and you're 4'8". I mean, you can play a sport like gymnastics, which is obviously extremely hard. And you have to be introduced to it at a really, really young age usually. But, if things just came down to gymnastics, people would be able to just hop into gymnastics at a later age. And it's usually pretty hard for someone to get into it as an adult.
But I mean, again, that's where there's a lot of sports that people can try out. There's a lot of things that people could attempt.
It doesn't even have to be a full-on sport. I mean, if you used to like to play baseball, who's to say you can't go in your backyard and throw some pitches up against the wall, right?
Yeah.
Maybe pick a bigger ball so it's a little slower so you're not throwing your shoulder out or whatever. I mean, we could still do a lot of these things. We have a football in the gym. We chuck it around a little bit. Sometimes there's a soccer ball in there, kick it around. I've never played organized soccer in my life, but doesn't mean I can't kick a soccer ball around a little bit. Why not? I'm not going to get hurt doing that.
I don't know, man. I think there had to have been something lost in translation with that post from what you said, because what you're saying is like play a sport, but the way he made it sounded like you were like, hey, just go play in the NBA. I could be way off, but that's what it seemed like when he was, and again, it's an Instagram post. I get it. But again, for me, like I said, I didn't do any sports until my late 30s. And as long as you guys have known me, almost a decade now, I've had back pain, right? That's the one continuous thing that I've had my whole life was that, since we've known each other, is back pain. I start getting into jiu-jitsu. I start moving. I start focusing on getting better at this sport. I'm not a high-level competitor. I've competed. I'm now a blue belt, so I'm a dangerous.
Hey, man, you can choke people out.
Grappler now.
Ray told me you armbarred him.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I didn't want anybody to know that.
Why are you picking on Ray? Ray's a good dude.
Hey, I'm pretty dude. So the reason why my right foot is still swollen about a month and a half later is because he fucked me up. So I haven't told him that. So if he's listening,
that's got to probably feel pretty good to get someone like Ray. He seems competitive.
Oh, dude, he's a savage. He will teach you the hardest lessons, but then afterwards be like, hey, don't let me do this, and here's how you fix that. Yeah. He's like, you've gotten me before, but I want you to get better, so that way we can make each other. He's down. So he's one of the homies. He's great.
I love how excited he is.
Yeah, he's amazing. But what I was getting at is I've been in pain. I got into a sport. It helped me get out of pain. Now, I don't think it's safe for me to say if you have back pain, get into jiu-jitsu because it's going to fix you. No, but what happened was the sport, it developed a bunch of other habits that helped me, kind of unlock this weird puzzle of mine. And yeah, dude, and I have been doing some FP stuff too, and that has helped also. But again, I can't sit here and say like one or the other or do this and it's going to fix you and da-da-da. But again, kind of getting back to the whole like rant here, I can't imagine anybody saying that like, sure, just get into any sport, or like it's like making it sound like it's impossible. I don't know. That seems really odd to me.
I'm going to be charitable here, more charitable than he was when he took my words. His meaning is that, like, look at a lot of people who are sitting down and they're sedentary and they don't move much, right? They go to work, they go back home, they don't have the greatest diet. Maybe all they do is walk a little bit. They have back pain, they have knee pain, they have shoulder pain, and you're telling them to get into a sport. That's how he took what I said, and that's how he geared it. He was like, why would this guy tell all these people who are living in crazy pain to just get into a sport? Which isn't what I was saying, but that's what he was meaning. That's the way he wanted to interpret my words.
Is that what straw manning means?
That is what straw manning is.
Oh, this whole time. I don't know what these debaters are always fucking talking about.
Right? and obviously that's not what we were saying. That's not what we're talking about. That's not what we talk about here. We want people to start with whatever they're able to manage.
Usually
and build.
walking. A lot of times walking is something that we'll recommend, or now you're doing a lot of the rope flow stuff. Those are good places to start. But I also, kind of to defend a little bit of what that guy was saying is, I don't know what the statistics show.
His name is Pablo.
I'm not sure exactly, what he was referencing with the stock market. That was a weird, but I guess what he was referencing is like, that means you already have it. You have the money so you can spend it.
Yeah, just put $100,000.
So you can
$100,000.
Yeah, it's actually a good idea.
I would say
right? Millionaire, right?
Yeah. Hey, everybody, listen up. Make more money.
Just 100,000. That's it. That's pretty low.
Oh, fucking anyway.
You and your lady just had an awesome night. You got dinner, or you just came back from the gym, and it's time for that fun time. But you look down at your willy, and, well, it's not working the way it should. Where's that blood flow? Well, that's where Joy Mode comes in. And I can read you these ingredients right off the bat because they're all natural ingredients: L-citrulline, arginine nitrate, Panax ginseng root, and vitamin C. The thing about Joy Mode is you just slip this baby into a little bit of water, drink it in 45 minutes later. When you're getting ready to go to the Pound Town, you will be ready to rock. And you know what I mean by rock. Joy Mode's really awesome because there's a lot of things that people promote as far as sexual wellness tools, but there's a lot of weird ingredients in there. These are all natural ingredients that's going to help your own production of blood flow. Stick it in some water. 60 minutes later, you're going to be able to stick it into something else. Joy Mode's your way to go. Andrew, how can they get it?
Yes, that's over at usejoymode.com/powerproject. And at checkout, enter promo code POWERPROJECT to save 20% off your entire order. Again, usejoymode.com/powerproject, promo code POWERPROJECT, links in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
You're saying in defense of what he was saying.
Oh, yeah, in defense of what he was saying, I don't know what the statistics show, but like a lot of people have gotten hurt playing pickleball.
Oh, yeah.
And it's because they went from really not doing much. So you, in your effort to be more athletic, or in your effort to try to track down whatever genetic gifts you may have had when you were younger, you're going to have to really baby yourself. You're going to take steps really, really slow. You can't just go out and like run the way that you think you used to run. The experience is going to be way different. And a lot of times there's not enough like awareness. Like when you're an athlete and you compete often and you do the thing often, there's so much awareness to the where, basketball players have been asked why they dribble the ball and spin the ball a couple times before they shoot the free throw. And they're like, oh, it's to feel the weight of the ball. And it's like, well, obviously they know the weight of the ball, right? But they want to feel the weight of the ball every time. It's a sensation. And there's certain like precipitation on their fingers that matches up with the ball and the laces of the ball and the smell of the ball. Like some of the dudes get weird with it. They smell the ball, they wipe their head, they have a whole little ritual, and they bang their free throw every single time. And so athletes get really in tune with like every little detail of everything that they do. But if you haven't done something in a long time, you're really out of tune with it. And when you go to do that sprint, or you go to play pickleball, or you go to play that pickup softball game or whatever, you could blow out a hamstring. You could get yourself hurt.
I want to add something in here because I think what you mentioned there was super important. And that's why it's important to, like, again, start with the low things. Start with the things that can maybe help you build some coordination, right? Because Well, what you're talking about there, like I think you've actually brought this example of Dennis Rodman, where he just throw the ball off the backboard to see how it moves, right? When you do anything, when you do jujitsu for a long time, right, you're able to understand that if I pull you this way real quick, I know where your body's going to go. I could close my eyes and do a lot of those things, right? When you've practiced it long enough. But that's coordination. That's understanding what movement does. And I think that there are practices, and I'm going to always keep mentioning rope flow as I think one of those practices that can help anybody build high levels of like coordination on both sides of the body without hurting yourself. Initially, you won't be coordinated. You're hitting yourself with this object all the time. But over time, you're going to learn how to rotate on both sides of the body, not just with your spine, but with your wrists, whole body, etc. You learn how to follow the weight of that object. I've noticed that like getting better at following the weight fluidly with that has even helped me learn how to follow the weight of my grappling opponent even better. Because in grappling, you're not just pushing, moving. You're like, there's a weight shift that's happening. And a lot of people don't know how to naturally shift their weight. But when you have a tool that allows you to feel a weight shift and then have your whole body moving with that while being low intensity and not something that's going to hurt you, that's one of those perfect entry levels into coordinated athletic type movement. And you got to find things like that if you can't just go out and play pickleball yet.
Right.
Yeah, I'm super excited for rope flow because just like a lot of new people to jiu-jitsu, I can do something really clean on my left side, but then like when we got to drill the other side, I'm like, oh, wait a second. Like it just doesn't work out. But like with rope flow, it's kind of the same thing, like where I'll get a movement on a certain side, like, oh, okay, I got this. And I try to go to the other side and like the rope hits me on the head or something, but it's like no big deal because it's low impact. But I feel like the same patterns that are like being, I don't know, ingrained in my brain all of a sudden are like still going to be there when I go do that in jiu-jitsu.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm pretty excited for that one.
I think probably the majority of people listening to the show, they might play a sport a little bit more for fun rather than it being like a bigger deal. There's probably less people that are like you're pretty involved with jiu-jitsu where you have a pretty big goal. Probably most of the people, they maybe recreationally will do some sort of physique competition or body build, maybe a little bit of powerlifting, but for the most part, it's probably fairly casual. And I think the thing to kind of think about here is just what can you get good at? You know, like where do your genetics lie? Like, should you be spending a lot of time working on things that you completely suck at? Like, there might be some utility in that. That's something for each person to kind of examine on their own. But the things do need to be enjoyable. So you should probably lean into the things that you enjoy the most, especially if we're just talking about trying to be healthy. That's like a forgotten thing for some reason, just like enjoying what you do. My cousin Steven, he really recently probably lost around 50 pounds. He got himself, not only did he like lose weight, but he got in great shape. And he's mainly just doing it with like lifting and walking. I don't even really think there's nothing that he's doing that he doesn't like. Diet-wise, he does basically a carnivore diet. He primarily eats meat, but he's not all crazy strict about it. When we were in New Jersey, he had a couple drinks. He ate some desserts, had some ice cream. He's gotten himself to the point where he's able to be a little casual with it. He's able to make some changes. But yeah, here's a video of him just sitting there, his giant ass calves. He's just like talking, like not doing anything, and he's jacked.
If you were just looking at his calves, you'd think that's a professional bodybuilder.
Yeah, professional lifter forever, right?
What the?
But he's very physically active. He's an electrician, so he uses his hands. He has done manual labor for many years, and he's just a worker. He just likes doing a lot of work. But anyway, my point in bringing him up is that everyone gets to be good at something. Like literally, everyone gets to be good at something. He's pretty strong. He's able to handle some pretty good weights. Now, let's just say Steven doesn't care about running, but let's just say that he did care about it a little bit. Can he get himself to the point where he can run, 10-minute mile paces and run 3 miles? Sure, he could. So each person's you're going to be able to get into a little bit of sport. You're going to be able to get into things recreationally a little bit. You might not be able to be Nick Bear. You might not be able to be Cam Hanes. You might not be able to be David Goggins. Like, you might not be able to figure out, like, these guys they're flying when they're running, and they're incredible. Maybe you can't get to that exact thing, but maybe you can be good at 4, 5, 6 different things. that you can kind of plug and play. But again, they should be things that you like to do, things that you enjoy. And then I think there's a lot of people, I think a lot of our fans, a lot of people that listen, they do want to play a sport.
Yeah.
They would love to go play a pickup game of basketball. They would love to, I mean, not just completely out of nowhere. I think they would love to be able to do it a couple times a week because it just would think it would be fun.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what we're talking about is like, I think we would want you to train yourself to that, not just all of a sudden hop into that out of nowhere. I think the first place to start would be have somewhere where you can go shoot some hoops here and there, and you just literally just shoot.
Yes,
but don't play. Don't get involved in a game. Hey, you want to play a pickup game? Nope.
Dog, have you ever seen Adam Sandler? I know Adam Sandler's been playing basketball for a long time, but have you seen that motherfucker play basketball? Have you seen Adam Sandler, like what he looks like and the way he balls? That's crazy. And I think that's a good example of like, number one, yes, he's been doing it for a long time. Okay, so his body understands the movement of basketball. But at the same time, I think it's necessary to understand that no matter what you start, you got to start slow. Okay, you mentioned the pickleball injury thing. People are just going in and fucking thinking they want to be a world-class pickleballer, right? But you have to baby, like you said, you have to baby yourself with this stuff. If you start something new, this is something that's going to be a potentially multiple decades of play for you. But when you begin at the beginning, you got to think of yourself like when you see those little 6-year-old kids running around the field playing and they start playing soccer, they're just playing bunch ball. They're not coordinated. You just see this fucking cloud of children running from one place on the field to the next. You got to think of yourself as being an uncoordinated kid. But when you look at yourself as an adult, you're like, I can do this. I'm old. No, you're old, but you're also like have kid level coordination. So you got to take the time to build these things.
It takes some time, and even just thinking of thinking of people that we know that have like actual real responsibilities, and they don't just get to podcast and lift all day.
Right. True.
Thinking of someone like Casey Short, he's boxing and running and lifting, and I think that's like ideal. Like it's almost like you're always training for something. Like, hey, what you training for? Nothing. Like just training for life. This is fun. It's fun to have the exercise. It's fun to have this capacity. He does hunt and he doesn't want to feel tired and fatigued, carrying an elk out of the woods or whatever it is that he's doing. But I think that that's what people should aspire to be. I think that's amazing. And he has a regular, 9 to 5 job. My cousin Steven wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go train. He doesn't have any other time to do it. He works 6 days a week.
But you hit the nail on the head right there, man. What are you training for? Life. Like the reason why you're playing this sport or doing these movements or doing this isn't just so you can be big and muscular. It's so that as you get older, you can still continue to live a vital life that doesn't have you just sitting around because you're in too much pain or you're too tired. We see these videos all the time of people in their 60s that start something in their 60s. And then you see a decade later in their 70s, oh shit, they're jump roping, they're moving around, they're doing sprints. But they started this later in life. But you see, it wasn't from 60 to 61, it was 60 to 70. The timeline I think that we give ourselves to progress at these things has to drastically increase. Because when we try to get good at it too quickly, when we try to do too much too soon, that's when we fuck up, and then we just say we don't have the genetics for it, this isn't for me, I wasn't built for this, etc. And maybe some things it's not for you, but at the same time you can find something that you can spend time with along with living a normal lifestyle that a decade from now you're going to be very surprised at where you are.
Watching the Olympics is super interesting and amazing, and you sometimes hear of some of these athletes that have a pedigree. They have family members or parents or grandparents that ran sprints or did the long jump or whatever it might be. And you're like, damn, okay, well, that's amazing. Well, there's a genetic component to that, but there's also an epigenetic component of that. That you just grew up with that as being normal. I think my friend Bobby Lashley, I want to say his like sister, his dad, like his mom, like everyone was like a track athlete, just like amazing athletics in his family. And he was a Division I wrestler. So you hear stories like that sometimes, but that's just a very, maybe there's some amazing genetics in that family, but also that's a very active family that's actively pursuing these things that we might say, oh, wow, you look at how lean they are. Look at what good shape they're in. It's like, well, they're in good shape because they're moving all the time.
Yeah.
Because they play these sports. And so there's definitely a combination of things going on. You know, you look at the Manning brothers, Eli Manning, Peyton Manning, their dad, coached them from when they were young. Look at Christian McCaffrey from the 49ers. His dad is a Hall of Fame wide receiver. But Christian McCaffrey, I think it's kind of interesting. I think Ed McCaffrey, his dad, was probably like a good 6'5", maybe even taller, which is like pretty rare for a wide receiver. They're not usually that tall like that. And I think Christian McCaffrey is much shorter. So from a genetic standpoint, he may have gotten some, good muscle fibers and a bunch of other stuff, but he didn't get the same height as his dad.
Yeah.
But then he still found, basically, in football, you have a lot of different positions, and he found a position that suits him well, and he trains his ass off. And so it's a combination of the genetics, and there's going to be some people, every once in a while, you're going to hear of like some guy that like barely trained that did great, but it's going to be few and far between. And I don't think it's helpful for you to just think that you're going to be able to get away with that.
Absolutely. And I think a cool thing is like Christian McCaffrey, I think some people will look at him and they'll be like, okay, look, he's super skilled. And he is super skilled. But he also has been doing that for a long time and had a father that I think you mentioned something else when we were off air about how like Christian McCaffrey asked his dad and he was like, okay, well, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah. He asked him, he was like, he just showed an interest in football. And his dad was like, yeah, okay, if we're going to go all in, we're going to go all in. And this means we're going to be like, training full blast. And he was down with it. He was into it. It wasn't, sometimes you have the parent, being like overbearing and stuff. And that may have happened a bit in this case, but I think Christian McCaffrey's pretty happy with the way everything turned out.
That you look at someone like a Kyrie Irving in the NBA, who I believe is like 6'1", right? But he has literally the best handles of all time. You look back at his childhood, how long and how much time did he spend just dribbling around a basketball in so many different ways, with his hands, right? There might be some genetic components there, but again, the genetics were brought out by the practice that the individual put in to realize what their potential was. All right, I think that's something that we all have the ability to do. I know it is. Let's see this real quick.
Yeah, I want to show you this this clip real quick because it falls in line perfectly. So it's Christian McCaffrey being interviewed.
Grounded for real. If you got jersey tackle, like I'm talking like 7, 8 years old. If you got you wear the big jerseys.
Yeah,
you get grounded if you get jersey tackle.
Oh, really?
Tackle at 7, 8 years old. You're grounded.
Home Depot tape, that double-sided tape. I'm 8. And double-side tape my pads. This is, they didn't have the Velcro, and double-side tape my pads. I never got. I was running through everybody. No jersey tackles ever. He would cut like certain slits in the pant to give you like more knee flexion, like back in the day.
At 8 years old,
was doing like dynamic warm-ups, dude. No sodas. Bedtime 7:30. Oh yeah, like they would take our phone until I left for high school at like a time. He's gonna hate me for saying all this, but it worked. If he listen, you see, I don't know if he's gonna listen to it, but yeah, like that's how it was. Like we when diet was always important, sleep was always important. Now we were kids, man. Like we could go over to the friend's house. It wasn't like anything like that. But when it came to sports and to school, it was, hey, if you want to be here are the things that you need to do. You would get grounded.
And then that wasn't even the one that I thought it was, but he talks about another one where he gets them ready for the combine and stuff. And like he went like he went way beyond like what a parent would think is like even healthy for their kid to be doing. And he's like, but this is what you wanted, right? And so he goes on and explains like all these things that like my dad would never have any clue how to do any of these things because he never played in the NFL. His dad did. And so, and he's currently ranked the number 3 overall NFL player in the entire league by the players. Tyreek Hill got number 1.
Oh, wow.
But like, it's like, dude, like that's a pretty crazy thing. Was it genetics? Like, yeah, obviously,
habits,
but it's a lot of other stuff too.
Dog. But think about those habits that he's talking about, compounded over years. Because like if he wasn't going to sleep on time, not the nutrition aspect of things, being able to grow.
Well, because he doesn't have the size, so he like literally for him, if he didn't do those things, he wouldn't have been a commodity.
Not in the NFL. But that's the thing. Like it's one of those things that, again, when people look at those habits anybody can put those habits into their life and reap rewards. You might not be a Christian McCaffrey, but if you start getting sleep, if you start paying attention to your food, right? If all these things compounded over a long period of time, the habits that we talk about all the time will help anybody develop into a stronger human being. Anybody.
We took a picture with George Kittle. George Kittle's the tight end for the 49ers, and he's a good 6'4", 6'5". There's a shot of him there.
Looks huge right there.
Yeah, well, my brother's trying to take a picture, like trying to do like a selfie, and George's like, "Oh, we're gonna take a selfie," and so George is like, "Hey, give me that phone. My arms are a lot longer." And then Angel, my brother's girlfriend, she was on my side. She was to the left of me. And he goes, "Why don't you just come over here?" And then he puts his arm around her and takes a picture. And I go to my brother, I'm like, "You're a fucking, like, what are you doing? Like, you didn't even stand up for yourself."
I'm joking.
Well, and then my brother didn't even like realize it. He's like, "What?" And I was like, first of all, he basically said he could take pictures better than you. Then he said his arms are longer than you. And then he stole your fucking girlfriend. I was like, "Oh, I'm the same thing." And then we were just all making fun of my brother the whole time.
He was like, "Oh,
you're Chris in joy mode.
You're a filmmaker? Yeah. Oh, here, watch this." Like, that's your girl. Watch this.
It's like, look, Mr. Kittle, we know we're here to watch you. We understand you're the professional, but you don't need to rub it in that you're better than us at everything.
Oh my God.
But yeah, a lot of these guys, you know, they're given certain bodies, there's certain height, there's certain definitely there's certain attributes that these people have that are going to be just different than, I mean, go to an NBA game. You know, there's some freaks there. Watch an NFL football game. Go to professional hockey. Go to a professional baseball game. A professional baseball game, you would actually be surprised and shocked at how big those athletes are and how fast they are and how fast they can fucking throw a ball. And how hard they can swing the bat and just everything. You'll be pretty amazed. You don't even really realize it. Baseball, I think, is like a sport where the prerequisite of athleticism maybe isn't as viewed as high. You know, we did a whole show kind of talking about that kind of stuff. But the athleticism of even baseball players and the size of them is kind of surprising. I mean, it's going to be pretty rare for you to see anyone under 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
It's not like they're all 6'7", but everyone is like usually 6'2" and 6'5", somewhere in that range.
I think a really interesting thing about the type of people that you see in sports and then the ethnicities that you see in sport is a lot of it does lend itself to, I guess, general ethnic differences in like sports, right? So an example is this. I think, you know, you're mentioning a lot of smaller people. You actually mentioned gymnastics, but in China, Asia, Korea, you see a lot of people like table tennis. There's a lot of martial artists like judo that comes out from there in a bunch of different weight classes. So you'll see these amazingly skilled judokas that are like 120, 130, 150, 160, because it's a weight class sport, right? In Japan, one of the most popular sports over there is baseball, right? You're not going to see it being something like American football or basketball. Why? Because like there's definitely, if you want to go far in that sport, there's generally a height needed. But you do see a lot of really, really skilled players that come out of there, even though they don't play in the NBA. Now, in terms of like, you know, I'd say white people in sports, you see a lot of people not just do really well in power sports, but you see them in the NFL. You see some of them in the NBA. You'll see a lot of them in swimming, but a lot of them in swimming, part of that comes down to like pools are generally in nicer areas. So you're going to have more kids that are going to have access to pools to become good swimmers. Yep. And then you see this French kid who's just beat Michael Phelps, one of his records in the Olympics, right? So it's like India, right? Cricket is the most popular sport over there. There's a lot of precision involved. There's athleticism involved, but it's not like you're going to see something like, again, a basketball or football, because over there in that country, it's like it's not put up as being something as popular as it is in the U.S. and some other places. So it's one of those things where it's like
there's a cultural component.
There's a cultural component. Okay, sprinting in Jamaica, right? People always talk about like having to run around all the place. In Jamaica, there's like not the greatest public transport in some areas. So kids are still walking to school in certain places. And culturally, people just race a lot. Like people just run around a lot. And you see like you'll see like a high proportion of Jamaican sprinters. Yeah, we can talk about how like some more higher levels of Black athletes do have more type 2 muscle fibers and the potential to build more bone density. And you think about putting
bullshit.
When you think about, but when you think about putting a force through a body, like a sprinter has to put force through a body, they also have to put force through their bones.
Yep.
And they need good type 2 tissue for that. So where do you see like the athletes that are the potentially the fastest and can jump the highest? Why can they jump the highest? Is it maybe because they have such dense bones that when they put force through that bones, their body can handle that force and propel them farther? Right? But when you mention that, you got to also realize white people, you also see a lot of them in strength sports and power sports. So they can probably have more strength and power, but maybe they are not able to jump as high or be as fast because of some of those slight differences when it comes to the top athletes.
Yeah.
When I say these things, I'm not saying that every Black person is like this, every white person is like this, but it's one of those things where like the top types of athletes in these sports might have some differences.
Interestingly, when I was watching the Olympics, I was kind of interested that there were so many white people in the high jump. I thought that was interesting. I was like, I just never, I don't know, I never thought about it. I don't know what the reason is versus, long jump versus high jump, but I thought that was interesting.
The thing I would wonder is, think about this. When you see sports, money, athletics, look at like the amount of jumping athletes that you see in basketball, the amount of jumping athletes that can jump you see in like football and these other sports. I think that, I'm not saying that you'd see more Black people in these sports, but you don't necessarily see culturally Black people talking about, I'm gonna be a high jumper. That's not something that's not something that you'll see. Like Black people, when it comes to athletics, you're gonna see a lot of them in basketball, football, potentially soccer, and track sports that require speed, 100, 200, maybe 400. Yeah. But you're not going to see any high-level athletes go towards the high jump because it's like, where's the money in high jump, right? A lot of people, sports are a way to get them money, get them scholarships, etc. And it's like high jump could do that. But if you're someone who's a great athlete in the high jump, why don't you just play basketball or how don't you just play football maybe, right? These sports that could get you some money and some recognition. So I'm not saying that, again, that I'm not saying that white people aren't good at jumping. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that also the environment dictates what somebody's going to pick as a sport for their long-term financial benefit.
It's also weird too, like when you do see jumpers on TV, on Instagram, you see guys like Ben Patrick and stuff. There's a good amount of dunk guys and jump guys.
Oh yeah,
that are white. But it's sort of interesting because I don't really know of any, like, I can't even think off the top of my head of like any white guys that like are known for jumping that are in the NBA or that have been. And I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm sure there's probably some examples. A couple people right now are probably screaming about something going on, but you know what I mean? Like I can't really.
There's Zach LaVine. He's mixed. Zach LaVine was in the dunk contest. I think he's mixed because he's super light skinned. But
Brent Barry won the dunk contest a long time ago. I think it was Brent Barry, right?
Yeah.
John Barry was the brother. Yeah.
Yep. And then there was the dude that played for the Kings.
Which one?
What was
Vlade Divac?
the white dude who was like just fucking ridiculous.
Jason Williams?
Jason Williams.
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't really a dunker, though.
Yeah,
That's
he wasn't
what we were talking about.
Yeah, he wasn't a jumper.
But he was quick with those handles, bro.
Oh, yeah. It's white chocolate.
Yeah.
The dude still can ball, but like there's like so many highlight reels of that guy on YouTube. So much fun to watch. Yeah. They hold up, like you can watch it today and he would, the dude's incredible.
I want to mention one more thing. We were talking about this before, but when you look at like Latin American countries, popular sports are soccer, right? And it's culturally like soccer and those types of sports are super popular, but there's also boxing. And one thing you notice, and we were talking about this before, with a lot of like Latino athletes when it comes to soccer, is their quickness and their agility, right? That's you'll see this in other ethnicities too, but I'm just saying that you see that in a higher proportion when you see those players play. A lot of them tend to be a little bit smaller in stature, so maybe that leads to a little bit more quickness and agility. But like when you see those guys play, their feet are like it's insane. Boxing is also a super popular sport.
It's huge,
right? But you also see when you see those boxers, Mexican boxers, their hand speed is insane, like across the board. So it's one of those things where it's like, again, I'm not saying everyone, but you'll see this with like some of those top athletes. They tend to have some similar traits that maybe if this is a whole thing where it could get into some dirty eugenics stuff, but like Brazilians, right? Brazilians are a mix of some people that came across the slave trade and Latin Americans. And what do you have there?
Big asses. That's what I think of when I think of, well, I guess there's
Latina woman and yeah. But I mean, but seriously, like, yes, like I think Julian Pinot was talking about that. He's like
everywhere.
So it's one of those things that like there are genetic differences, but it's not like it's not like high level athletes don't have genetic, I guess, some genetic benefits. And it's also one of those things where it goes back to what we were talking about before, where you have something within you when it comes to your genetic gifts. And it's not always like you could be the biggest or whatever, but you just got to like find what is that for you and develop it, because most people don't develop it.
And not everybody has a great physical prowess.
Yeah.
But they can still probably find something. Like someone's super thin and they're just like, I don't know, never been good at sports, and they don't even want to try a sport. Maybe something like rock climbing or something. Like you don't really know until you try. And rock climbing is extremely challenging and extremely hard, but I just think there's like an activity, I guess I would say, not even necessarily just like a sport, but there's an activity for everybody. And I do find all the stuff that you're saying super interesting, because I think culturally is maybe a larger factor than we want to give it credit to.
Yeah.
You know, you see those tribes and you see them jumping and stuff like that. And it's like, are those people going to jump high without doing that all the time? They're not going to jump nearly as high. Maybe they can still jump decently high because they are thin and they're tall, so maybe they can jump a little bit. But it seems like they practice that like all the time. It's something that they do very often. And when you do something very often, you're kind of embedding these things into your brain and into your memory. And then from there, you're able to get better at these things. Some of the stuff, I tried to look up more information, and some of this gets really weird. And so excuse me if any of the information that I share right now is crap or not true. That's fine. I'm just going to share it anyway because I think it's relevant. But there are some people have proposed that some West African countries, they believe that maybe because of malaria, that there was some sort of adjustment from the population there.
From the sickle cell trait.
From the sickle cell trait. And then there's also another belief that kind of falls in line with maybe a little bit more fast twitch muscle fibers. And that could be for a multitude of reasons. Some people believe the sun. Some people believe vitamin D. Some people believe bone density. I do think Africans a lot of times have just a higher bone density, usually in general. I believe that's kind of true, but I don't know if that's true across the board, but it seems to be the case. And then we did learn from Muscle Doc when he was on the show. He mentioned that the higher your bone density, the easier it is to gain more muscle usually, because that body is in tune and in line with like being larger. And so I think some of those things make some sense. The one thing that starts to get tricky for me about anything in regards to the sun is like the world is full of, there's a lot of brown people. You know, it's not just, right? It's not just like an African population. There's a lot of variance of colors and a lot of variance of where people come from. And so I don't know if people from India are regarded as being super athletic, or if that's a cultural thing. I'm not quite sure, but I find all this stuff just really interesting. I always have. I always thought that these differences and these variances are cool to talk about, and it's cool to learn about.
I want to add something in real quick about and we should still pull this video up, but the bone density thing. Because, yeah, higher bone density does make it easier to hold more muscle off of your frame. But to build that bone density, you need the activities to build the bone density. You need activities of sprinting. You need activities of resistance training, whether it's calisthenics or weight training, to actually put stress on the bone so that the bone can get more dense. Then you can hang more muscle off of the frame. So it's one of those things to think about. Like, no one just has bone density. Right. But you have like people that build thick bone density like myself. Like my bone density I have really high bone density. But the reason why I have really high bone density is I started lifting at 13 and I started sprinting and playing soccer at 6. All these things helped develop that bone density. So I was able to put more muscle on the frame. Right. Maybe I have more potential to build more bone density than another person. Probably. But at the same time, it doesn't happen without taking action on that.
Right.
So you'll see a lot of Black people that aren't very big, that maybe they look like they have a frame, but they don't look like they have much muscle, etc. You ask them what they've done, they haven't done much of anything, right? So it's what is the thing that you do to show what you could genetics have in whatever sport you're choosing to go into, you know?
It's also interesting the different diseases that might plague one race versus another. And again, that's hard to figure out. Is that cultural? You know, is it because like here in the United States, we have a lot of bad habits. So it seems like a lot of the cultures that come here, they gain weight really fast.
U.S. habits.
Oh my God. You see that with a lot of like college kids that come from other countries. They come here and like, you know, they're freshmen like 10 or 20 pounds, but some of these kids are gaining like 50 pounds pretty quickly because there's just so much access. You know, we have so much access to food. It really, it kind of just throws off any information that you're able to kind of gather on whether it's like a cultural thing or a genetic thing.
You're trying to get healthier and you're probably eating chicken for every meal or the same beef cuts for every meal. And trust me, I know how good some cuts can be. You can make anything taste good. But Good Life Protein is the place that you want to go if you want to start adding some different types of meats into your rotation. They got picanha, they got chorizo sausage, which is still great on the macros because they're using Piedmontese beef. They have lobster. They have all different types of fish. They have actually a bunch of different types of chicken too. They have lamb. I'm telling you, if you give it Good Life a shot and try some of their different meats, which are still great on the macros, you'll start to appreciate the things that you can get from different meat. Don't think too hard about that one. But check out Good Life because we're sure that you're going to love the taste and the quality. And it's good for your health. Andrew, how can they get it?
Yes, that's over at goodlifeproteins.com. And at checkout, enter promo code POWER to save 20% off your entire order. Or if you want to save even more, use promo code POWERPROJECT to save an additional 5% off your build box. Again, goodlifeproteins.com. Link is in the description as well as the podcast show notes. You guys want to play this video?
Yeah.
Are Black people naturally more athletic than other races? That is a question I've been getting a lot. And so to address it, I'm starting a multi-part series on sports, race, genetics, and the socio-political conversations of the Olympics. My name's Joel, the Medical Mythbuster, and in this episode, we're looking at these two well-known Olympians to understand how bias driven by the media plays into this stereotype. In 2008, Michael Phelps won 8 gold medals, making him the most outstanding athlete at the Beijing Summer Olympics. For his success, media narratives focused on his coaching, his mother's dedication to him as a child, and his single-minded pursuit to beat Mark Spitz. Let's contrast that to Usain Bolt, who set world records in both the 100 and 200 meter dashes. Usain Bolt is Jamaican, and as soon as he started setting those records, articles began coming out describing a specific genetic variant in Jamaican populations. Many said that this genetic difference was the rationale for his success. But why is it that Phelps' success wasn't attributed to his higher wingspan, to the fact that he has both double-jointed ankles and elbows, and the fact that he produces half the lactic acid of an average person? And why is it that we often feel the need to extrapolate the athleticism of one Black athlete to all Black people, but we don't do the same thing with white athletes? Studies like this one show that Black athletes are more likely to be praised for their physical abilities as opposed to things like their intelligence, diligence, or grit. The truth is, what it really comes down to for these high-level Black athletes is the hundreds of thousands of hours that they put into perfecting their sport and their craft. Make sure to drop a follow. In the next episode, we'll be talking about whether race in any way has any connection to physical or
I think a lot of times, not in the case of Michael Phelps, obviously. Michael Phelps looked amazing. He had a amazing physique, but I think sometimes the physique throws people off.
Yes.
You know, sometimes with black athletes, you look at him, you're like, damn, like that guy looks fit. He looks strong, looks powerful. He's jacked. He's ripped. You don't always see the same look from other ethnicities. So I think that sometimes that could be a variable in there sometimes.
Yeah. It's funny because this isn't like a black white thing, but the media narratives, at least initially when it did come to that, were very interesting, and it does make it unfortunate. You could assume too, it's like Usain Bolt's from Jamaica, Phelps is from the USA. You know, we're gonna pay more attention to what our USA person has like done in their past. But at the same time, when you look at athletics in general and you see the high proportion of like black athletes that are like in the NBA and the NFL, when people look at those things, and you even pay attention to like black people in like bodybuilding, what people will say, let me use bodybuilding since we have a lot of bodybuilding examples, is like, oh, that person has BBC genetics. That's like a joke that's been within the industry, BBC genetics. But those athletes aren't necessarily looked at for the work that they've put in to put on that size. It's like, it's black genetics. It's kind of like, he's got that black genetics. Whereas like, you know, you see other guys, like, yeah, you'll pay attention to their genetics, but I feel like since there's more relatability, and also because there's a higher percentage of white people in the United States, there's a relatability. So when they look at somebody, they'll be like, I can be like him. Right. And I get it. I think that's totally valid, right? I think black people are like 11% of the population in the U.S. You're like 11 to 13%. So
getting to be higher. Everybody watch out.
Oh shit! Right, but it's one of those things that I think is just it's unfortunate, and it can be somewhat annoying. I mean, from a black person, it can be somewhat annoying because again, it's like for all these black athletes who are doing really cool shit, they've put in years of work. They've put in years and years of work, and there are so many people who haven't. Right, you don't see those types of results, but you're not saying if they did, it would just come down to their genes. You see a lot of white athletes that put in great work too. It doesn't come down to their genes, and it shouldn't. We should pay attention to the things that these people have done for years and decades. That's why whenever I talk about O'Hearn, I'm pumped about O'Hearn because like, dude, everyone would think he's on roids, but at the same time, look at his track record. You see videos and shit from when he was 16, 15, 14, 13 years old. You see the pictures. This guy's been putting in work for decades, and you see what he's been able to build, no matter if you think he's on PEDs or not.
Sends me videos every day, and he's on the elliptical. He's on the elliptical. You know, he's like started out with 30 minutes, and now he's up to like an hour and 15.
Day after day, bro.
Working on just getting leaner and leaner, just dropping some LBs.
Day after day, that consistency.
Yeah.
And anybody can have consistency, no matter what you are. Anybody can.
Yeah. I don't even know if it like matters at all, but like what does the media in Jamaica say? You know, we talk about like what, you know, this Instagram post was mentioning, right? Like about white athlete doesn't get his genetics don't get singled out the way a black athlete's would. But like in Jamaica, do they do the same thing too? Do they say, "Oh, Usain Bolt is gifted because he's Jamaican"? Like,
well, Jamaicans and sprinting and track is like that's their cult. That's their
like Kenya.
Sport.
Got it. But you know what I'm saying? Like, well, so then do they? You know, again, look at Michael Phelps and be like, "Oh, he's a good swimmer because of his genetics." Like, is it flip flopped? Is it just because it's our perspective here in America?
They might share more of like Usain Bolt's like real story. You know, his real story is that he seemed like he was talented from the jump, seemed like he was genetically gifted, and it turned out not to be true. And he got beat a lot. And then he worked his ass off. That's what it seemed like happened. And then he just started dominating. But yeah, he got his ass kicked a lot for a long time. And I think it was like, I think everybody was kind of like waiting for him to come around. Like, when is he gonna? And I don't know if it was like a work ethic thing. I have no idea whether it was like he wasn't, or if he just wasn't all in, or if he just wasn't mature enough or strong enough, or whatever the case is. But I know that he used to get his ass kicked a lot. And then just after some certain point in time, he just was like, nope, that's not ever happening again. And he started kicking everybody's ass. And, you know, you see a lot of training footage of him, and you hear his mentality if you ever hear him speak. He talks a lot about how much value he placed in training And it seemed like it meant a lot to him. And you see him like sprinting with a sled, and you see him, he does some like lifting stuff. And I think the lifting stuff is like, I think for him, I'm sure lifting was important, but I think it was a little bit more of a side thing for him. I think he just had to get down the maybe the consistency and just the track work, because it seemed like ultimately it was like a technique thing after a while. And he's maybe not everybody knows this, but like one of the things that's amazing about him is he just doesn't slow down. So I believe they were saying that Noah Lyles or some of the athletes got up to like 26 or 27 miles an hour. And Bolt would do something similar. He might have even been running a little bit faster. But usually what happens is, so these guys will get up to 26 miles an hour and then it dwindles down to 25, 24. Just like when you're doing your sprints on the bike. It's like, you can sprint probably pretty good for 8 seconds, maybe 12 seconds. But if I said 30, it's like you're watching it. Right. And it's the same thing happens with those athletes. And that's why at the end of the race, it looks like people are blowing by other people, and they're not really blowing by them. They're just going the same speed. And the other guys are actually decelerating at the end of a race. So you see those videos of Bolt looking side to side and like kind of celebrating before he even gets across the finish line. The case is usually that the other guys are slowing down more so than him.
There's a video I just sent Andrew, and it's I saw some of the switch on other channels, but I think Zach Talander put it together. You can play from like 801 in a little bit, but it's a good video to check out. We'll have it in the description. But it shows like how the Chinese coaches pick weightlifters from like a young age and the things that they pay attention to. It's pretty cool. You can play a little bit of it.
Let's do this. Let's go here.
Back and your upper back. So it's your flexibility up here that allows you then to contract here and then be able to move your legs. Again, another aspect of what weightlifting really is about. And you'll see, this is a child, and this child has like sick erectors ready for the squat. And watch how good the squat is. Look at this. Then we have the overhead squat. So like something like this, like, is that the best overhead squat? Is that a good, bad? These are really small things. And if we're going to eliminate a bunch of kids, which they have to do, they could be missing out on a champion, but it's unlikely. Then now that they've selected the group that they want, they ask their interest in becoming an athlete. So usually it's the parents that need convincing. And this is just going to be a...
So I think that's just a good video to check out. But again, like culturally, when you look at Chinese weightlifting, that weightlifting culture in China is huge. So they have coaches that go out and they like poke kids' glutes and do all these things to figure out what kid has the potential, the potential to potentially bring gold to China, right? And gold to China is huge.
Yeah, it's a value system, I think other countries, as much as we enjoy the Olympics here, I think other countries value it even more because they put more money behind it a lot of times. I mean, I don't know the specifics exactly of what the U.S. does, but it doesn't seem like the athletes get paid very well. And then also, I believe there was a stat that was shown on Instagram, and the United States was like the lowest in terms of like what they pay for like a gold medal. They pay like $40,000 or something like that. But I want to say there was other countries, at least one country was paying like $540,000 for every gold medal. And then, $100,000 or $200,000 for silver and so on. But the interesting thing was some of those countries, it's like, they'll just never have a shot. So maybe that's, maybe those countries are smaller, and maybe the Olympics, is just a bigger deal to them. Here in the United States, we have a lot of sports that people get praised for. And so it's only like swimming, gymnastics, track and field. Those are kind of it that figure skating, I guess, that need to be like highlighted by the Olympics. Otherwise, we don't really need the Olympics for anything.
Okay, this is very interesting. Paris Olympics gold medal payouts by country: Hong Kong $768,000, Singapore $745,000, Indonesia $300,000, Israel $271,000. I'm going down the list real quick, but United States is at $38,000 for gold medal. So South Korea, France, Spain, Malaysia, Republic of Kazakhstan, Israel, all these places pay more than the U.S. to gold medalists. But I think it's also because of like maybe just the amount of potential sport opportunity in the country. I don't know. I'm not sure.
And then, like, who does it say which countries have won the most?
That's another thing. It's like, again, if you're going to bring a gold to Israel, we'll fucking pay you to bring a gold to Israel, you know? So, but the U.S. has so much.
Some of those countries, like, we're fucked genetically.
But it's also, the thing is like in other countries, man.
You're never going to win. It doesn't matter what amount of money we put up.
Right.
Well, but again, let's like think that was fucking funny. But like the training prices, like you're not going to see the Nigerian bobsled team,
right?
Nor the Nigerian ice hockey champions, right? There's no infrastructure in some of these places for those types of sports. But what do they have? Like they have fields. They potentially have like fucking tracks, maybe. So it's like a lot of these countries, their only opportunities in certain sports where there's infrastructure for actual people to play. Because like there's struggle.
Yeah, and it seems like in other countries, like if like I think wrestling's one of them, right? Like the USA wrestling, like they do have like stipends and stuff like where they will take care of you, but you are only allowed to wrestle. It's very I think strict. But in other countries, like, oh, if you're going for the gold, like we're going to take care of everything. And I could be wrong, but that's at least what it seems like. It seems like, yeah, it's just a bigger deal in other countries. Whereas here, if you're not in the NFL, NBA, or pro baseball, like
the culture of sport, Eastern European culture of sport when it comes to wrestling is like European culture of like wrestling is insane, right? It's like they take it seriously over there in a lot of different spots. So you'll see a lot of amazing wrestlers come from those places because culturally, it's like you're a man, you wrestle, right?
Yeah. What do you guys think of stuff that went down with boxing?
Imani Khalif.
Because there's a lot of controversy being poured out over that.
I think the Imani Khalif situation is interesting because you saw a lot of people just like react way too soon to it. I think
my brother did. He said he put up a post and he had to change it or something.
Yeah, he had to put up a post right after. Like,
I was like, you gotta slow down a little bit. You
got to be ahead of it though.
Yeah.
A lot of people were getting a lot of like. It's crazy because like news outlets were putting out that like man beats woman. Like big news outlets were putting that out. And okay, I know some people even that are listening right now are like, but that's a man, XY chromosomes. I'm gonna refer to Imani as a woman. Because like people have finally put out like her history, her birth certificate, pictures from childhood. If Imani has XY chromosomes, I think it's the IBF, International Boxing Federation, that did the test on her and some other Chinese person. The reason the ILC, which is the International Olympic Committee, threw that out is because they found some fishy stuff with the way they were testing. But let's say that Imani does have an XY chromosome. I'm still going to refer to Imani as a she because like she grew up believing she was a woman. She had breasts and a vagina. Not that person did not think that they were a man and probably didn't find out about any of this stuff until they were tested later in life. If the XY chromosome thing is truly legit.
Because there's some people that have found out that they have like kind of almost like both parts later on in life. Like the one
Castrosomania
with the testicles, like I think they're inside her body, right?
She didn't like internal testes. Think about I think one thing to think about here is like how fucked that psychology is for that person. Because you're going through life, you see yourself with these parts. Castrosomania has an outward vagina and breasts, but you don't realize that you have these internal testes that are helping you produce more testosterone. And you don't even know. She didn't know until I think 2019, right? So I think an interesting thing with this Imani situation is because it's not the same thing as trans athletes in sport. That I think is very clear, especially when it comes to a man transitioning to a woman and competing against women. It's very clear. That shouldn't fly. That's just my belief. I don't think that should fly at all. But when this is someone who is physically, if we had no testing, we'd look at them and determine that's woman. I know some people are going to say, but look at her face. You see a lot of female athletes that have masculine traits as athletes. A lot of people
Even sometimes that's just from being lean and muscular.
Absolutely. You see a lot of people who are really mean to Serena Williams back in the day, and they're like, that looks like a man. Look at that masculine man. Because of her traits. But a lot of people did that to Serena Williams and a lot of other like female athletes that had those similar, like had just masculine type of traits. So you couldn't even say that Imani is a man just because of her traits, because she still has breasts and vagina, right? So I think it's tough because can you look at Imani as just having a genetic advantage? Like, or because now we can test and see that she has XY chromosomes and she creates more testosterone, like, well, what does that mean? Because there are guys who have more test in general, and that gives them certain advantages than other guys. There are guys who have way bigger wingspans, more bone density, all these things that could be genetic advantages. Does Imani just have genetic advantage, or people, or is she a man? I don't think she's a man, but it's a tough one. I don't think this is as clear cut as like saying that's a man, because even though those are chromosomes, like that person has female parts. I don't know. It's not. I don't think it's as easy as everyone wants it to be.
Yeah, I think because like since the opening ceremonies, everyone's on kind of like high alert, right? So like the second anything like this comes out, everyone jumps on.
Yeah.
My thing kind of always comes back to this, seeing that she has, well, not seeing, but learning that she has all the hardware to make a baby. I think she's allowed to compete with other women. Now, barring like a health issue or whatever it is, because if she's a high level competitor, her body might not be in a state to make a baby. But if the ovaries are there, if she's having a period, all these things, I think that's a woman, in my opinion. I could be way off, but I don't know. To me,
some people are going to say, like, because I've mentioned that, but some people are like, well, if you're producing that much test, chances are you can't really have a baby. But the thing is like, do you have the parts to do it? Maybe. Like,
the other thing is like, what a great excuse to blast some steroids. Like, hey, I got some internal testes, or you just naturally produce more testosterone, so you just take a little bit on the side, right?
Well, like a little estrogen to even it out, or just more testosterone.
Yeah.
The tough thing about this too, I think there's intersex, there's this, I think intersex and DSD, development disorder or development syndrome disorder. I don't know, DSD, which is what Imani has. There's a lot of differences because not everybody with DSD has internal testes. Like there's a lot of ways that this stuff can show up that are like, it's variable from person to person. But that's what makes it so tricky. It's like you almost had to like, what if you had an athlete that had XX but did produce way more testosterone for some specific reason? Because those types of athletes do exist. Do we then let them compete? Like, and again, this only comes down to really affecting women's sports, because it's like you're not going to ban a guy from being just way too masculine, but a woman that is way too masculine or has way too masculine traits. Like, and this isn't not somebody that transitioned. This is somebody that was born a woman. It's like. Now there's I don't know. I don't think it's as clear cut.
And then in her past, like, did she go up against other women and just make them quit, or was that a one-time thing?
I think she's 37-9. She's lost 9 fights. Four of her fights she's won by knockout in her career, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's not that much.
So she's not like, and there's another thing, like with this Italian boxer that went down after 46 seconds, apparently there's a lot of political fueling in Italy behind that. So people are thinking like this was kind of like the planned in a way for that woman to do that. Because she was like, I've never been hit that hard in my life, but why haven't, I don't know, any of her other opponents been like, I've never been hit that hard in my life.
That's why I was asking, like, is she wrecking people, but I mean, I'm saying that's a good record, but if she's not KOing everybody, then this seems like it was a one-time thing where she made somebody quit.
But yeah, there's
so much genetic variance. We did mention Michael Phelps, and there's people with all kinds of different genetics, and it's like, where do you draw the line? Like, how much testing do we start to do? If someone had like acromegalia or something like that. I mean, there's Wemby, he's like, what, 7'3" or something, right? The guy that plays for the Spurs. Just like, it's unbelievable. And then what happens if someone was 8'3" and nimble? I mean, do you start, you know what I mean? Like there's always, I guess what I'm trying to say is that the field is never level. I think we've always thought that it was. And we always thought, like, if we play within this box and we play within these, in baseball, you play within like these lines, right? And we have these particular rules, 3 strikes and you're out. We do all this, and you have to have a certain bat, has to weigh a certain amount. The ball weighs a certain amount. All right, everyone's like even, right? And it's not, because there's a guy getting up at bat that's like 250 pounds that's been practicing his whole life, and maybe has had his parents or grandparents in the sport, like a Barry Bonds or something like that, and it just will never be even. And even in the case of Barry Bonds, people think that he maybe took steroids later in his career, but it was never really totally found out. He never retired, never quit. He never got fired, but he's the greatest baseball player of all time, and he's like not anywhere. He's not in the Hall of Fame, or no one ever talks about it. There was no ceremony. There was no nothing. Just like
That's
gone.
fucked.
It is so
really
fucked because people got mad that I don't know that like I'm an average person and I can't be that, so I'm going to get mad at him. It's like, wait, what, dude? You could take all the steroids and it'll never be close.
The only time baseball was fun was when he was smashing home runs.
Oh, dude, it was so good.
Didn't Jordan have like freakishly large hands that allowed him to like fucking
Yep.
Yeah.
right? Again, I know hands is different from your chromosomes, but at the same time,
Yeah.
it's like it's a clear advantage in that sport of basketball. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in sports, I think there'll probably be more situations like this that'll pop up.
Especially with more stringent testing, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think one thing to think about here is some people will be very hard on one side and very hard on the other, and they will criticize people that aren't immediately saying that's a man, that person should compete. Think about the difficulty of this situation, because again, a lot of these athletes in their shoes didn't even know what they were working with. Like they have no idea. So I would I'd say let's try to talk about this situation with a little bit of compassion for some of these people, because it's not like they're a person that's purposefully going into a sport with say like I'm transitioning and I'm gonna beat up some chicks. Like it's not the same thing. Caster Semenya didn't know until she was older. Imani probably didn't know until she was older. So it's one of those things where it's just like, let's have some tact when we talk about these people. And
Think
even
about
when it
a
comes to
little
like
bit.
referring to them as a he or she, obviously she grew up being a she. And I know some people are like identity politics, blah, blah, blah. But like, come on, dude. Like, look at her young pictures. Look at like what she viewed herself all her life. And now because we have some testing, you're now going to say he, just maybe have some compassion. Maybe have some compassion.
Yeah, and I think all this kind of stuff will do is it'll probably sort of taint history, so to speak, taint. But it might, with some of the athletes, some of the great women of the past, maybe it will bring up, controversy on how much they kicked other people's asses.
Shit. I wonder if we were doing this type of testing like in the 90s and 80s. We probably were. It just makes me wonder, like, were there any other athletes that maybe slipped through the cracks and like were able to like get gold? Like,
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. This kind of information, I'm sure that there's probably been these genetic variants for a long time, and there probably has been people.
Yeah, well, like weren't a bunch of Olympians that won a bunch of medals and stuff, like weren't they caught doing steroids even, like after the fact? And then now like we kind of question that whole era, right? Like, like, oh, everybody happened to be wearing braces during that era. It's like, why is that? Like, oh, because growth hormone can like help, or it makes your just whole everything grow, right? And that's why their teeth were all getting messed up. And so now you're like, wait, so does everybody that had braces, like, now do we have to look back at all of those?
Right.
It's weird. Yeah,
it is weird. I think we'll find out too with the enhanced games. I think, if that sticks around for a while and you don't see any records broken there, you probably just be like, oh, well, maybe, But that's hard to tell too, because maybe the cream of the crop and maybe the best genetics will continually end up being in the actual Olympics, and maybe there's no amount of steroids that can beat that. I don't know.
Yeah, I like the idea of those that know they're not going to compete in the next Olympics, just competed, and now they're going to go into the enhanced games. So like they're still at their peak, and now they can get on, or openly get on stuff.
Right.
And then we can really see what they can do. I don't know. Hopefully it works out.
Apparently there's quite a few intersex Olympic champions from the past. Like there's been some in the 60s.
Oh, shit.
70s. Like there's quite a few. Prior to 1996 Olympics, intersex Brazilian judoka Edinancy Silva had surgery to allow her to continue in women's sport. She would appear in the games and several other editions, but there have been some that won medals too. There's some history behind this, man. I didn't even realize.
I love that we don't know that, and nobody cared. But now that's all we care about.
I know.
That
It just shows you we got way too much time on our hands.
I was gonna say, or we can get back to just not caring about that shit anymore because I'm tired of it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.